It's only Tuesday. Illinois in Focus Daily. Let me get my microphone checked one more time. This happened yesterday. Only got one channel. Give me a moment. Did that work? Not quite. Hold on. Testing one. Testing one. Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, check one, check two. I think that's a little better. All right, Mike, check over there in the live chat. You guys hear me just fine? If so, thumbs up. We got several things to tackle today. Obviously, what's going on in LA and the continued reaction and anticipating Governor J.B. Pritzker testifying in front of a U.S. House committee. That's going to be some fireworks, and that's happening on Thursday. So we will definitely be reviewing that Friday morning here with Illinois in Focus. We go live each and every weekday morning at 8 o'clock here on YouTube. So be sure to check that out and join us in the live chats. You can have all kinds of people saying 10-4, good buddy, good morning, sounds good, 5x5. Brian, I appreciate that. Still channel out. Brian, another Brian says, so maybe we'll have to see if we can get this configured just right. Why it's only one channel, not sure, but I guess we'll have to build the plane as it flies, as they say. So it's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to go to the website, thecentersquare.com, where on the national page, you can see some of the latest headlines, including a measure that passed out of a U.S. House committee prohibiting non-citizens from voting in Washington, D.C. But you can get all kinds of other headlines there as well. Don't forget to get the newsletter. Just sign up for it. It's free. But you can also check out the Illinois page where I'm the editor and got a great team working on all kinds of stories. You can see some of the latest from the Second Amendment Foundation about Illinois' gun ban lawsuits, which we'll tackle here in a moment. But you can also check out the latest on the Mike Madigan saga. Where he arrived to federal court yesterday for the first of a multi-day sentencing hearing. Madigan, the longest-serving State House Speaker, was convicted of 10 felony accounts, federal charges of corruption back in February. So those 10 counts coming with a possible 12-and-a-half-year prison sentence. Here's Madigan walking in to the federal court building yesterday. Again, the longest serving State House Speaker facing 12-and-a-half years in prison. Is he actually going to serve time? That's something that some people are curious is going to happen or not. So we'll be watching that as well. Jim Talamonte in Chicago to report on that for us, and we'll connect with him later this week to get a rundown of all that happened. So big things in the Madigan case as well. So again, go to thecentersquare.com and get the latest headlines. Coming back, I think I just triggered something there. Just merely talking into the microphone. Thumbs up, yeah. Glad we got that worked out in the pre-segment here. But either way. All right, it's live to tape right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. We will talk about the latest in gun filings challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban coming up next here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we bring you the latest here with the Center Square. All four of the plaintiffs' groups filing their latest briefs in the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban, as you've got more Illinois laws in the hopper to restrict and regulate law-abiding gun owners. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Join the live chat. Get segments of the show throughout the day at the Center Square on YouTube. But also get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus Daily. So we're talking about the Caleb Barnett et al. Case. That is a consolidated case out of the Southern District of Illinois, where last fall, a federal judge in the district court, Stephen McGlynn, he found that Illinois' law that prohibits the sale and possession of 170 plus semi-automatic firearms and magazines over certain capacities violates the Constitution and the Second Amendment, right, to keep and bear arms. So that was after a pretty lengthy 4-day bench trial of a lot of testimony concerning everything from, the quality of the metallurgy on firearms that are used for military purposes versus those who are available for the civilian market. A lot of questions about the AR-15 and similar types of platforms, and the AK-47. So pretty detailed record. And that case is in the appeals court. Now, we reviewed the state's response to the federal judge, and now it's time for the plaintiffs to respond to the state and the federal judge. So we'll go through that now in just a little bit of a cursory overview. So let's go ahead and pull this up. This one is the appellees in this particular circuit court, the Seventh Circuit. This is Dane Harrell et al. For the plaintiffs. Just one of the filings here. We're going to look at some of the overviews and the table of contents, and then we'll break out some of what Thomas Magg has had to say in his filing for his plaintiffs group. So here we go. We've got the jurisdictional statements and such, but just the arguments overview. Gives you kind of an idea of how they're going to argue this when they do have oral arguments. And just a quick note, one attorney for the state has already said that they cannot be available for oral arguments between September 3rd and the 18th. So that's an indication of when we could possibly see oral arguments or when we may not see those oral arguments. But anyways, back to the table of contents here. This court should affirm based on Heller, Bruen, and Rahimi. So it is pointing to recent U.S. Supreme Court rulings on availability of handguns, the Bruen decision out of New York, and the Rahimi case concerning due process in stripping somebody of their Second Amendment rights. Talks about the Bevis case as well, saying it's fundamentally incompatible with the Supreme Court precedent. And that's a decision that was made by the Seventh Circuit in the Bevis case. And that case, by the way, is still stuck in the district court. And I think they've held off on any future hearings until these cases are dealt with. The term arms covers all handheld weapons, not exclusively civilian weapons. The plaintiffs group here says no historical evidence or analog supports banning commonly used rifles or their standard magazines. They also go through what dangerous and unusual means, what arms in common use means. They delve deeper into the Bevis case. And they say rejecting Bevis accords with Seventh Circuit practice. And they say this case is straightforward under Heller and Bruen. You've got another table of contents from the second plaintiffs group. This is goes into the Protect Illinois Communities Act, how it was passed, the Bevis case, and a variety of other precedents that they're arguing here. But they say that the state identifies no reason to disturb the district court's evidence-backed conclusion that firearms PICA bans are arms. The district court did not clearly err in finding that ordinary people would and actually do keep for self-defense and other lawful purposes the firearms PICA bans. The state does not contest that any of the evidence showing that the firearms PICA bans are firearms that ordinary people would find useful for self-defense. The state does not contest that any of the evidence showing that ordinary people do, in fact, keep for self-defense the arms that PICA outlaws. Further says that in the overview, the state's contrary arguments ignore the laws, the facts, and what makes a firearm unlawful under PICA. And the district court did not clearly err in finding that firearms PICA bans are neither exclusively nor predominantly used in military service. They further argue that the state identifies no reason to disturb the district court's evidence-backed conclusion that magazines PICA bans are arms. So it goes into the magazines issue. The district courts correctly concluded that the state failed to identify any tradition of banning ubiquitous non-militaristic arms. The arms PICA bans are not dangerous and unusual. There's no historical tradition of banning common non-militaristic arms that millions of law-abiding citizens own for lawful purposes, and they say Illinois cannot save PICA's sweeping ban on common non-militaristic arms by pointing to some dramatic technological change or novel societal problem. And that's going right to the argument that the state has that these are military-grade type weapons, and societal concerns for mass shootings causes the legislature to do what they did. So they ultimately break down their conclusions there. Now, the third overview of the arguments from a different plaintiffs group in the case Barnett and against the state of Illinois, they say the district court correctly held that PICA's firearms and parts bans violate the Second Amendment. The district court correctly held that PICA's restrictions on firearms parts violates the Second Amendment, and the district court correctly held that PICA's registration requirement violates the Second Amendment. And that's the case coming from the Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois. Then you get into the plaintiff's brief that Thomas Magg filed on behalf of the Langley plaintiffs. And he says, with absolute certainty, it can be said New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruen largely overruled every Second Amendment case that this court has considered in which it upheld a statute or restriction simply by virtue of the fact that this court, like many others, was applying a standard that Bruen rejects. Applying Bruen correctly, as stated by the Supreme Court itself, we reiterate that the standard for applying the Second Amendment is as follows. When the Second Amendment's plain text covers an individual's conduct, the Constitution presumptively protects that conduct. The government must then justify its regulation by demonstrating that it's consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation. Only then may a court conclude that the individual's conduct falls outside the Second Amendment's unqualified command. Just as the First Amendment protects modern forms of communications, the Fourth Amendment applies to modern forms of search. The Second Amendment extends prima facie on its face to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, even those that were not in existence at the time of the founding. It also goes through some of the language in Heller. The Supreme Court undertook its first ever in-depth examination of the Second Amendment's meaning. After a lengthy historical discussion, the court ultimately concluded the Second Amendment guarantees the individual right to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation. That's central to the right is inherent rights of self-defense, that the home is where the need for defense of self, family, and property is most acute. And that, above all interests, the Second Amendment elevates the right of law-abiding, responsible citizens to use arms in defense of hearth and home. So reaffirmed, the modern devices and arms not common at the time of the Revolution are indeed protected by the Second Amendment, as literally noted by unanimous Supreme Court just hours before the filing of this brief. Some have referred to these items as military-style assault weapons, among which it is included AR-15 rifles, AK-47 rifles, and .50 caliber sniper rifles. But those products are both widely legal and bought by many ordinary consumers. The AR-15 is the most popular rifle in the country. So that's from the recent ruling that came out of the case Smith & Wesson versus Estados Unidos Mexicanos. Further goes on to apply Bruen and even more back and forth with the different precedents that are set. So that's just an overview of the four different filings, and we're talking about like 120 plus pages of filings from the four different plaintiffs groups. So the case continues in the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban, and this is going to be interesting to watch how it unfolds because the U.S. Supreme Court denied hearing a challenge to Maryland's gun ban. Then the same day, you had the Viramontes case out of Cook County be decided by the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals that upheld the district court's ruling that the state's ban and the Cook County ban is constitutional. So that case, Viramontes, could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, of course, they could possibly sit on it and say, we're not going to take this one. It's not as strong as, say, the Barnett case here. which the Barnett case out of the Southern District has a very detailed record after a 4-day bench trial and a district judge finding it unconstitutional. So is that the case that's ultimately going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court next after the federal appeals court decision? We don't know yet because the timeline here is still uncertain. Now, the plaintiffs groups responded to the state, but how this works is the state then gets to respond to the plaintiffs groups, and then we'll get oral arguments scheduled. When that'll be, could it be this fall? When they schedule it after a hearing, how long is it going to take for them to rule on this and then get it to the U.S. Supreme Court? So it possibly could be sometime in the spring before the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals actually deals with the merits of this case. Because keep in mind, this is on the merits of the case. This is something that has gone all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court on preliminary grounds, where they were asking for a preliminary injunction. It was granted by the district court, but then overturned by the Seventh Circuit, and then the U.S. Supreme Court said they're not ready to take this case because it's not ripe. It was all on preliminary grounds. So it went back to the district court. You had the debate on the merits, and on the merits, the federal judge found it unconstitutional. Now it's in the appeals court. So that's where we're at in the process of the Southern District case challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban. But could there be more litigation about gun laws? Last night, the several Illinois State House Republicans held a town hall, a virtual town hall, and one of the things they discussed was Senate Bill 8. Here is State Representative Regan Deering, a Republican from Decatur, talking about Senate Bill 8, which is the safe gun storage bill that did pass both chambers of the General Assembly this spring.
Safe Gun Storage Act. I mean, if you drill it down, it's essentially that a firearm owner can't store or keep any firearm on their person or on their premises. I'm going to read the language so I get it right. Where the firearm owner knows or reasonably should know a minor without the lawful permission of the minor's parent, an at-risk person, and I'm not sure
what is that,
down an at-risk person, or a prohibited person is likely to gain access to the firearm. So a lot of questions from our concealed carry gun owners, people that do store their guns in their car, perhaps for personal protection. Now they have to be in a locked glove box or something, but everything is just so vague. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea to keep your weapons locked, but if you are, for example, I think a big debate was about hunters. If you were taking your hunting rifle with you and you have a minor because you're going out, how do you store that in the back of your car? What does that look like? And so just the intentionality with the vagueness, I think, often gets us in trouble, and like Dr. Howder said, could lead to constitutional violations.
So more about the Safe Gun Storage Act. State Senator Sally Turner laid out some more of her thoughts on this, and even questions of potential litigation coming down the pike if this indeed gets signed and is implemented.
And so that was Senate Bill 8, and what it does basically is criminalizes victims of theft by punishing these law-abiding gun owners who don't report a stolen firearm within 48 hours. And sometimes, as we know, that they have no way of knowing if it's missing because maybe they have it in some other area that they don't go to within every 48 hours. That's kept in some secure safe, gun safe in a cabin or something of that nature, or another area that they have living quarters. And it has hefty fines or losing your FOID card. And I think we all believe that was government overreach. And ignored. And ignored the everyday rights of reasonable, responsible gun owners. And it targets the people that are even doing things right. So those of us in the 44th district, this isn't something that happens for us every day. I don't, up north, maybe that's something that is going on up there, but it's not for our reasonable, responsible gun owners here in the 44th district.
Now, Bill Howder, a Republican state representative from Morton, also sounding off on the safe gun storage measure that passed.
Just another law for law-abiding citizens, and will do nothing to stop gun violence and the criminals. I believe it not only was irresponsible, it was unconstitutional blatantly, and I'm getting to the point where I don't even look at these bills anymore because I know they're going to be in the courts for years, and because they're going to be found unconstitutional, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
It's blatantly unconstitutional. It really hinders your ability to defend yourself in your home. So
Right.
I'm not going to say I don't get excited about these, but I think the Illinois State Rifle Association is just, they're almost to the point where they just say, they throw up their hands and they say, we're just going to not even lobby on this bill because we don't have the numbers, but we do have the Constitution on our side. And so why even work in the state of Illinois on the legislative effort when you're going to take it to the court anyway, because we have the Constitution that will protect us once again. So I think this will be in the court system and it'll be overturned.
Yeah.
Something to watch as we have ongoing litigation against Illinois gun laws, with another gun law in the pipeline getting ready to be implemented, requiring safe gun storage with penalties if you don't report lost or stolen firearms, including the loss of your firearm owner ID card. So we'll be tracking all of this and more. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. As Governor J.B. Pritzker prepares to testify about the state's migrant sanctuary policies, you've got some Republicans at the State House talking about the taxpayer costs, and Democrats in the U.S. Congress saying that President Donald Trump's deportation efforts are causing things to be less safe. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Still watching what's unfolding in Los Angeles, where you've got the National Guard being sent, a doubling of the president's allotment he gave earlier, and that all in the face of California Governor Gavin Newsom, who announced that he's going to sue the Trump administration for essentially, as Newsom puts it, hijacking the National Guard. But Trump pushing back. Let's hear some of that here with Illinois in Focus, where he was asked some questions and made some statements about the president of, or the governor of California.
Some of the things you're reading about in Los Angeles, thank goodness we sent out some wonderful National Guard. They've really helped, and a lot of problems they were having out there. They were afraid to do anything, and we sent out the troops, and they've done a fantastic job. So I want to thank them very much. I also want to thank you for being here as we discuss one of the most exciting parts of the One Big Beautiful Bill. It is indeed a big, beautiful bill, and it's doing very well. The Trump Accounts, as they call it, pilot program, which will make it possible for countless American children to have a strong start in life at no cost to the American taxpayer, absolutely no cost. It's going to have a huge impact. I want to thank House Speaker Mike Johnson for number
Trump,
one being a great
again,
speaker.
Yesterday talking about the issues in California, but also the big, beautiful bill, he calls it, which does have more funding for immigration enforcement, and something that, again, is very contentious right now in Los Angeles, with protesters turning into violent riots, trying to block federal law enforcement, and state and local police having to try to keep the peace, saying that it's chaotic, and ultimately President Trump calling in the National Guard. Here he is talking more yesterday about the entire issue, and in particular taking a question from a reporter, responding to Gavin Newsom.
Have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor. What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening, and they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, well, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed. You saw what was happening. So we did the right thing. Everybody agrees to that. But you have a governor who let the city burn down, didn't want water to be sent down to him. And I sent billions of gallons of water. I wanted to do it in the first term. He wouldn't do it over, I don't know, they have environmental reasons, but there were no environmental reasons. I think it's just a political philosophy. But it's lucky for the people in Los Angeles and in California that we did what we did. We got it just in time. It's still simmering a little bit, but not very much. Yep.
Again, yeah, it is still simmering, something that the images still coming out of California are showing. But Illinois Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, yesterday during a House committee, a U.S. House committee, she talked about how Trump's policies aren't helping with public safety and are costing U.S. taxpayers exorbitant amounts of money.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can all agree that whether it's at the border, the airport, our country's shorelines, or in cyberspace, the Department of Homeland Security cannot fail. But I also believe that the department cannot fail the ideals and values that make America the greatest nation in the world. Under the Trump administration, DHS is out of control, illegally spending hundreds of millions of our taxpayer dollars and flagrantly violating the rights and civil liberties of Americans. Under this administration, due process and the limitations that the Constitution puts on our government are being ignored. And this bill does nothing to protect Americans from being targeted. It fails to protect American citizens from deportation. It does nothing to protect American citizens from being confronted in their homes and offices or having their property seized, as this administration's deportation policies ignore legal safeguards. It allows ICE agents to continue to grab people in places of worship and in our schools without a warrant. And it punishes legal immigrants who speak their minds, all while rewarding for-profit detention centers with billions of taxpayer dollars.
Now, in Illinois, state and local law enforcement aren't allowed to cooperate with immigration enforcement officials from the federal government. But when, what happened last week in Chicago, which possibly could still, see some things happen this weekend, for instance. There's some red flags being raised by others saying that there's going to be demonstrations across the country this Saturday. So what we saw last week in Chicago, where there were some confrontations between Chicago police and protesters around immigration enforcement efforts from the federal government, police weren't helping with the ICE enforcement, but they were helping keep the peace with protesters getting a little bit more aggressive in Chicago. Now, it didn't rise to the level of the National Guard being called in by President Donald Trump, as we saw in Los Angeles over the weekend and continuing. But there's still concerns that could happen in Illinois as a sanctuary state. And Governor J.B. Pritzker on Thursday will be testifying in front of a U.S. House committee alongside the governors of New York and Minnesota. But here in Illinois, again, as a sanctuary state where we can't allow for law enforcement by law to cooperate with federal immigration officials, we also aren't in Illinois allowed to use sheriff's jails for immigration detention beds, and that's something that some county sheriffs said is not safe for them to not be able to keep those non-citizens in beds that ICE is going out and detaining. Instead, now ICE has to wait for somebody to be released from jail, for instance, and then they're on the street trying to apprehend them instead of apprehending them behind, safe bars at a county jail, for instance. So Lauren Underwood, U.S. Congresswoman, critical of the bill that includes a bunch of border enforcement efforts. But again, in Illinois, as a sanctuary state, there's been substantial taxpayer cost for all of this, including the health benefits for immigrant adults program that's going to go by July 1st when the new budget year starts, but it's been in place for several years and has cost taxpayers. During a Republican town hall, a virtual town hall last night with State Representative Regan Deering, State Senator Sally Turner, and State Representative Bill Howder, Howder talked about the overall taxpayer costs from Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies.
And we all know that they have, we're a sanctuary state, and Chicago's a sanctuary city, And so they created a program of healthcare benefits for immigrant adults and seniors, and both of them went way over budget, but especially the healthcare benefits for immigrant adults went way over budget by 300, 400 times budget estimates. We're looking at billions of money spent on illegal immigrant healthcare, in addition to the boarding and housing and cell phones and schooling and all the things that we spent. But just alone, the healthcare benefits. So they agreed with us, and the governor agreed with us, that it's a disastrous boondoggle. And so they cut it out of the budget, and they never admitted that it was, but that's why they did it. And but they're keeping the one program for 65 and over immigrant adults, and they're saying that it's only going to cost $110 million. Guarantee you, it'll be at least 5 to 10 times that.
And we'll likely see some audits.
I know that there was
come out of the ongoing health benefits for immigrant seniors program. And how that ultimately costs taxpayers as well. While those who are supportive of the program say that these individuals need to be able to have access to health care, or else they're going to go to emergency rooms, and then that's just going to be more of a drain on taxpayers. So some interesting debate that's likely going to be continuing with that, because apparently the Trump administration is trying to limit the amount of federal tax dollars going to states for non-citizen health care that is not emergency care. On the ground reporting, we'll be keeping an eye on it with the Center Square. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we break down things that are happening in the land of Lincoln so you can get on with your day. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for hanging out. Each and every weekday morning, get the podcast. Just search Illinois in Focus, and don't forget to get the newsletter in your inbox with thecentersquare.com. Some Illinois State House Republicans holding a virtual town hall last night to talk about what they experienced during the spring legislative session, passing the largest state spending plan in Illinois state history. That includes tax increases, but also going through some of the things that didn't pass and how taxpayers aren't safe yet because there's still the looming transit fiscal cliff that some are looking to bail out with tax dollars. So we've got that to tackle here. I'm Greg Bishop. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. You can catch us live each and every weekday morning. Just go to YouTube, the Center Square, subscribe, do the live show there. But we also put the podcast up as well. So if you can't watch it live, say you're traveling and you still want to stay up to date, Illinois in Focus. You just search it out and you'll find it. But get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. It's a free newswire service. I'm the editor of Illinois, and last night, this, of course, coming about a week and a half after spring legislative session finished, you have some State House Republicans holding a virtual town hall talking about the budget. State Senator Sally Turner, State Representative Regan Deering, and State Representative Bill Howder here talks about the overall spending plan.
The tax and spend majority party, again, with the largest budget in state history. Last year was the largest budget that year, and the year before that was the largest. So we just keep, Illinois does not have a income problem at all. We have the largest taxes in the nation. Right. And we have a spending problem. And they prove every year they are the party of tax and spend. So much so that their own Speaker of the Illinois House said that he's dealing with the tax and spend Democrats. He's a Democrat, and he called them tax and spend Democrats.
So Howder, kind of just unpacking the overall cost there. You saw it brings in $55.3 billion in state tax dollars and spends $55.2 billion of state tax dollars, only a buffer of a little over $100 million in that budget. State Representative Regan Deering also sounding off.
We raised a few key taxes. A few of them are just sort of one-time taxes, which is never great because we are looking at, a goal of a more sustainable budget here. We did not take up a few key tax increases that were like the service tax. That was a biggie. Some of the taxes that we're thinking about bailing out the transit program, which I know Senator Turner is going to talk about here in a little bit. But just overall, it was a real travesty. There was a lot of sweeping from particular pots of money or buckets of money that would just sort of help balance the budget this year for the Pritzker administration. A lot of times that happens from our road funds. You would think we'd be driving on roads paved with gold, but we're not. So, the ability for our legislators to think about sweeping from one fund to another is never a good plan. But overall, I think that, this is the budget that passed. This is the one that we're going to try and work through.
And it's a lot of money, the largest spending plan in state history supported by tax dollars. And Deering also given some tips on people how they want to search through this budget.
One of the greatest functions is that you are able to use this Control F. So you can search, for example, welcome centers there, and it will take you to all of the lines in the budget that reference welcome center. Sometimes it may find you a different keyword that isn't exactly what you're looking for, but it's really very fascinating to sort of dive into their.
And you can see all the spending for chambers of commerce, for churches, for centers, all kinds of things. But Deering also talking about how you can drill down through the budget yourself and see what kind of spending there is locally.
Maybe you want to put in your town of, Clinton, or maybe you want to put in Morton, or maybe you have what you know to be a taxpayer-funded program in your area, and you want to know if they got a similar amount or a larger amount or a smaller amount. So there's just a great opportunity for transparency now that we've already passed it. And, I just wish that we all would have had, like Representative Howder said, that real time to look it over before we had to vote on it.
And again, some Republicans suing House Speaker Chris Welch and Senate President Don Harmon over how the budget passed with only a handful of hours to review it before final votes were taken before that May 31st deadline. So not a lot of transparency there in the final hours, but now we get to search through it all day long. State Senator Sally Turner said, listen, while the budget's been passed and some tax increases were included there, we're still not out of the woods on other tax increases, including to bail out mass transit.
The other part that was going to affect all of us was $1.50 on each delivery that you got at your home from Amazon, from the delivery guy at Walgreens, from the Target delivery. All of those things, we're going to have a service tax of $1.50 on every package that was going to be dropped at our door. That should have sent alarm bells up to everyone to pay attention to that. Because if you're the mom that's running late, getting home from work, and you forgot to get your kids diapers, and you have that delivered, that's another $1.50 for you that you have to pay in tax.
And it's a tax that impacts everybody. Is a user tax of sorts, but those who say that we need to have progressive revenue, this is not that. This is actually regressive because it's going to impact lower income people much harder than it will impact those who have means. More from Senator Turner.
And so we found that the Chicagoland Transit, that whole system, is facing a $330 million fiscal cliff that's coming up in 2026. So even though they knew something about this 2 years ago, it was like they just threw up the flare this year to try and identify what is it that all we need to do. Well, one of the things,
and again, they are looking at this delivery tax, $1.50 per transaction. So it's not out of the woods yet. They could come back this summer to deal with that. They could deal with it in November as well. But the transit system facing that fiscal cliff because federal COVID dollars are expiring, and a lot of criticism on how governments used COVID dollars. People said it should have just been used on one-time debt payments, not starting new programs or relying on sustained spending from those dollars. But apparently that's what CTA and RTA and the transit authority up there are doing. More from Turner and Howder on this.
So that means that they're still talking about it, but we need to voice our opinions as to this does not work for us.
Yeah, I think I can't believe it passed in the Senate, and then how poorly it was put together that it couldn't even come before the House. So they voted on it in the Senate. I think it's extremely unpopular.
And they voted on it in the Senate last minute before that midnight deadline, and the House never brought it up, but it could still come back. So other things that the legislators last night during this virtual town hall talked about was stuff that didn't pass, one being a bill about Illinois energy.
Well, next was that exciting energy omnibus bill that thankfully didn't pass. Not only are we going to see our rates increase this summer because the legislature didn't take action like it should have. This bill, thankfully, again, didn't pass, but it doesn't fix termination dates for our district coal and gas plants that run in both what's called MISO and PGM, two different areas of how the power runs. It didn't fix that. One of the biggest things that it didn't fix that we're having problems with in our area, in the 44th district, is it didn't fix solar and wind siting issues in our rural areas. And actually it made it worse. So this bill, what it did was allowed to have battery storage. And I don't know if you've seen the battery storage, but there's some nice big apparatuses. I don't even know how to explain it. Containment facilities that could go all the way up to 150 feet from your door if you live out in the country in a subdivision to that nature. It didn't fix any of that. And that's
so obviously a lot of energy issues not addressed. While the state isn't wanting to open back up coal-fired power plants or lift the cap on nuclear plants, they're aiming more for battery storage and reliance on wind and solar. So the energy bill didn't pass, but it's like not necessarily good or bad. The Republicans are saying, because probably would have been even more bad stuff. But it's also, they didn't try to retract some of the laws that are currently in place. Another bill that didn't pass was the mascot bill. This would have said that you can't use certain what some may consider insensitive, cartoonish type characters for mascots if it's playing on an identity, if it's playing on an ethnicity, for instance.
I don't think anybody would say that that's what we're trying to do. And in the face of having the Fighting Illini as our state school and having the Blackhawks and everything else, we're gonna force these schools to change all of their letterhead, flags, their one of their banners.
I mean, that's
one of their
huge price tag.
Yeah.
Big price tag if schools were going to be prohibited from having mascots that some may seem are insensitive, but that didn't pass. So another measure that didn't pass, the very controversial Homeschool Act.
Well, another bill that thankfully did not pass was the homeschool bill. 2827 was its House bill number, and I give all the credit to the thousands of families that called and wrote letters and showed up at the Capitol to express their opposition to the bill, which would have required homeschooling families to submit an application to the Regional Office of Education to basically verify that they are homeschooling their families. And as seen by the reaction, there were a number of problems with this bill.
And including the possibility of criminalizing parents for not reporting that they homeschool their kids. So, again, some of what passed, the largest state spending plan in state history, increasing taxes on tobacco and a whole host of sports betting and such. What didn't pass, the transit bill with more tax increases, the Homeschool Act, the mascot bill, energy policy that could have made energy prices go up or down, who knows, but that didn't pass. Ultimately, it means that we could see a busy summer of some hearings at the State House, possibly a special session called. But definitely fall veto session, even though there may not be any vetoes, could be pretty busy. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us here each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for sticking through with the microphone issue at first. I think I figured that out. Just had to unplug it and plug it back in. But no, thanks to everybody for chiming in on the live chat as well, keeping it lively, but keep it clean. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Get to the website, thecentersquare.com, for the free newsletter in your inbox with headlines from Washington, D.C. and the state of Illinois, beyond as well. Get the podcasts, just search Illinois in Focus, and don't forget to join us live here on YouTube with The Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, and this is Illinois in Focus Daily.
Call